Good morning, everyone. Normally, I don't make videos like this right in the morning, but today's very important. So, there's a lot going on in the world. There's people throwing riots and they're arguing against their government, and there's just so much pressure to enforce vaccine mandates, and then those get toppled over by the people, and people realize that's wrong or it's excessive, right? And then people argue about all kinds of things around the world with your government. So what's going on? Are the population being suppressed and oppressed? Is there a power struggle? What's happening here? What stage is it to care about these things? So first things first, there is a transition throughout the world to get into stage green. Okay, so stage green has red in them. So people call it a red shadow. I call it just the infusion of red so that they can be green. Maybe that's the same thing. In which case, they want to fight for what's right. And so fighting for what's right is going to be different for all across the spectrum. You know, if you believe that there's oppression by the government, then your green is going to look something like a violent parade or a violent, and it's going to be different for everyone. But the overall thing is a transition to green. So is fighting for your rights a good thing? So the way I see it is stage green exaggerates. Yes, there is a power struggle going on. Yes, governments always want power. That's just how it works. And that's why you need to moderate their power. Make sure they're not abusing it. Make sure there's not too much corruption. In China, the power system is, listen to Joe Rogan when it comes to China, because no one else is talking about it. They put on this nice show like, oh, we're a free country and all this, but then they have more human rights violations than anyone, and they're not getting in trouble for it. So what you have here is you have a facade that's put over you. There's truth and there's falsehood. There's reason to fear and there's no reason to fear at the same time. So in general, stage green is going to fear and in that case, they're going to want to take offense. Now, if you're in stage yellow and above, you'll probably be fearful from all this chaos and we got to work stuff out so that that people are not going to get hurt in the future with some kind of genocide. So they'll probably think through these things and weigh the pros and cons, weigh what's going on, including spiral dynamics being a facet. And the conclusion will likely be, we just got to wait it out, keep an eye out for an abuse of power, excessive oversight over the people for the sake of keeping track of every little thing. We'll moderate ourselves as the people, but you can't be too scared. But the unhealthy version of yellow is to be scared. Now, once you get into turquoise, you begin the process of enlightenment. So you throw away conspiracies, you look for holism, and generally speaking, you will see some kind of power struggle going on, but you'll attribute it to some kind of mystical forces or a synchronistic process, maybe including the psychological facets and underlying consciousnesses that are fighting or arguing or trying to get top dog. Whatever it is, you'll realize there's something deeper going on, and you'll kind of just compartmentalize it as it's deep stuff. We won't worry about it. I find that in stage coral, you'll be outspoken if you know that something will lead to devastation, and you won't be outspoken if you think it won't. Now, in stage teal, the awareness of power struggle is present, but you won't actually care because being on the same stage teal has to worry about being too passive. And so if a government said, let's take over the people, the stage teal have a certain amount of enlightenment within them. So they'll just kind of be passive about it. And then sage aubergine will want to live. So they'll realize that there's power stuff going on, but the conformity value that's obtained in the V meme teal will bring them into a stage where they're following directions, but also leaving out information. So I'm not going to let people know that I know what's going on. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. So in stage aubergine, you're leaving out information. That's part of the V meme. I don't actually know which words would sum up the V meme exactly. Exuberance and excitement seem to be good top words. Whatever's going to lead to the most aliveness in life, that's the stage of aubergine. And So aliveness, right? It doesn't mean you're enthusiastic with a smile. It just means inside you feel like everything is a reason to live for. Everything is a positive, and it's giving me energy just to absorb that piece of knowledge, right? So that facet becomes the beam of arguing, but that just means you won't really be arguing, but you won't, but you'll navigate the world to enjoy it still. And then once you enter into clear, maybe you'll notice things. Fear seems to dwindle. So people who are afraid of the government is trying to enslave the people, these conspiratorial wordings, even though they're not false per se. When you say any of those extremes, obviously that's not what's going on. But there's ounces of truth where probably relate to the transition from orange to green throughout the world. I think clear generally understands that. It also understands some people want to take more advantage, like governments in general have their own collective ego, collective bodies of personalities, and we got to be wary about that. But it's not thought about. It's just peace is the most important thing. What's going to retain the most peace possible? So they'll go online and enjoy meditations and different vibrations and frequencies to get into alternate states of consciousness, to get into a feeling of your body, to become whoever it is you are or whatever it is you are, and enjoy that. So it's a state of being again. Every feminine stage has a more passive approach to life. And, it's going to be hard to tell who's in clear and who's in turquoise. And if someone is factoring in guided meditations every single day, chances are they're accessing clear more often. And they're accessing the upper parts of tier 3. If they're not, then it could just be they want to keep sanity, they want to stay grounded. Or it could be that they rather speak. Choral is a speaking stage because they like to, right? And the reason why they're a speaking stage is because by stage clear, you realize that your speech is your action. That your speech actually changes the formation of the world. So it's like a magician. But the coral doesn't know that he's a magician. He just knows that when he speaks, things change. He's not 100% aware of the knowledge yet. And then later on, you're aware of it, but you don't need to speak. So you use speech like an elder magician or an elder wizard. It's like that your words are going to change reality, so you choose when to speak. And so if you look at Muji is not just throwing around his words. Every word he says is guided by the V-meme of clear. What's going to bring acceptance and peace to myself and to my surroundings, to my own ego, to their egos, pretty much. I don't even know if he believes in the ego, but the ego, if you feel incongruent in your heart, that's an ego. And, the lower rungs, if you get the lower rungs taken care of, the ego and the rage and the hate will be, very, very small. It won't be something you'll ever have to embody for the rest of your life. But if you don't, then it's there. And so Muji, his goal is to get that smaller, to get that realized as nothingness, as emptiness. But the way to do that, he has good instructions. He also doesn't acknowledge the ego because he knows that it's just a pattern of energy that has to do with some way you're thinking about the world because of your upbringing and your fears. So that's a separate thing. I as entering into stage clear, I don't dismiss the ego because the ego is a very important thing. You're talking about your upbringing. If a little baby was crying, would you dismiss their problems? So too, when you're in stage clear, you don't dismiss someone's ego, and you don't treat the ego like it's nothing, even though it is nothing, because the baby thinks that it's important to lose his doll. The baby thinks that it's important that the grown-up thinks that it was bad, and the grown-up's ego, to have been hurt when they were a kid. He or she was hurt when they were a kid. And so they're holding on to that. You can't downgrade or diminish that experience. So even though it's nothing, we're trying to get you to realize that. Scientifically, it is nothing. So someone whose axis is more of an orange lens, of enlightenment or spirituality, then they'll start saying, yeah, the ego's nothing. Why worry about it? But then the one speaking has an ego, and he's ignoring his own child when he says it like that, and he's putting himself on a higher playing field than someone else, as if they don't know it's nothing and I do. And the reason why they do it is because of self-esteem issues. They want to feel smart. But it's not, who cares about being smart? We just want to get our egos to completely dissolve. And the way to do that is not to tell them that your ego is not there. Yes, fundamentally, we want to recognize that it's not there, that we're nothingness. But until that happens, it's going to be a process. There's going to be some kind of trauma stuff to deal with, and that's going to be resolved throughout your stage clear, throughout all the stages of spiral dynamics, but especially in stage clear. So the question of whether you're going to be worried by all this, the chaos going on in the world, you're not. The more you advance, you're not going to be worried. Now, people who I speak to a lot, they're worried. They're worried because they're usually in stage yellow, because that's when the worry. And if they still retain worry, even in stage coral and teal, the way I can make sense out of that is that they're accessing lower rungs. And the reason why that happens is because they have a job, they have a mission to get X amount of money, to pay X amount of bills, and there's nothing wrong with that. But because they're focused on that, the chakra system, or the value system, the V meme of orange, is active. And so that's dragging them down. Oh, I need this and need that. And they forget, oh, if I need this and need that, and I'm worried about this, I may not have it. So their egos are pulling them down and giving them a belief system that it's not good to be up here and ignore all the problems of the world. So remember, you're not ignoring the problems of the world in higher tiers, you're just putting them to the side, putting things into perspective. Now, if you want to ask me, will there be an enslavement of mankind? There's going to be more oversight. We have cameras everywhere. We have algorithms everywhere. There's going to be an ability to check on everyone. Now, this gets negated by the fact that there's so much information. Who's going to be able to sift through it? AIs? Yeah, certainly AIs. But even the AIs are their own intelligence. They adopt morality. They adopt compassion. They adopt, and the reason why they do that is because they're learning from us. Teal Swan made a mention on this in a tweet. So I don't think there's reason to worry too much. Just be practical. People make mistakes. How much tolerance should we have as we evolve? How much little tolerance should we have? That's going to also change as we evolve. Because murder in stage clear is probably from an alternate state of consciousness versus murder in stage orange, which is deliberate act normally. So, these things will also be revisited later on. And that's something to definitely discuss as the laws evolve, as people evolve. In terms of, so there's going to be oversight, but is that something to fear? We knew that was happening with Snowden. We knew that was happening when 9/11 happened, and we wanted to make sure that this wasn't going to happen again. And the government taking advantage of that situation. We knew that was going to happen, and we've adjusted accordingly. We know that everyone's listening, or something's listening all the time. It's not healthy per se, but it's just the reality. Now, is the government going to try to use that to their advantage? Well, you can look at North Korea. Look what they're doing. That's like the worst case scenario. So you can learn not to be like North Korea, or you can say we have to adjust our morality standards so we don't end up doing something like that, and we have to make sure that future generations don't do anything like that. In general, the more we advance as a society, the less interested we are in enslaving mankind.